Hey y'all, it's Missniecytv and I'm here to do a review for Sistas Season 8, Episode 1. The episode picks up where it left off and Andy's finding Gary's body the night of the wedding, and then she does that fake scream. And then we jump directly into the interrogation between Agent Watt and Andy. Agent Watt is like, how'd you go from wanting to testify against Gary to marry him? And Andy's like, well, my relationship with Gary's kind of complicated. Detective Watt is like, how is it so complicated that he ended up with a knife in his chest? Andy tells Detective Watt that her romantic choices and personal choices are no material for this case, so can we move on? Detective Watt then tells her that Gary's passed away from a blood clot, and Andy starts breaking down crying. I'm like, if it was me, I would not be crying at all, but alright. Agent Watt looks at her like, I know you're really not up here crying. Andy gets up to leave, and he's like, Andy, sit down, and Andy's like, my name is Miss Barnstein. Now it's Hudson's turn to be investigated, and he's very upset that Gary has been stabbed. The detective is like, it might have been one of the investors in your hedge fund, because you know that's technically a Ponzi scheme, right? Hudson's like, no, I think it was Andy. He proceeds to call Andy everything but a child of God, and he's like, everything that Gary did was for Andy, so it might have been her, or she might have an insurance policy out on her. The detective is like, you're just grasping for straws. But if that were the case, why would she kill him before she got married and not after, so she could get all his money? Hudson's like, I don't know. Or it might have been one of her friends. Hudson's like, did you hear about her friend who's pregnant by 2 different men at the same time? This leads to the interrogation of Karen, and the interrogation starts off wrong because Agent Watt is like, how's your baby daddy doing? My correction, baby daddies. Karen's like, can you just ask me what you need to ask me so I could go on about my day and open my business? Because I have a business on the other side of Atlanta that I need to open up. He's like, oh yeah, you do. Because your first one got burned down and then Zach moved on with Fatima. Karen's like, what does that have to do? Karen's like, can we hurry this up because I gotta go? Then he starts bringing up Rooster Riches, and now Miss Marie invested into Rooster Riches, and she was also investing into Gary. Now this leads Agent Watt to believe that Karen, Pam, and Miss Marie have something to do with Gary stabbing it. Karen's like, no, we don't. Then he brings up the Fresh Start Salon and how that could be symbolism for something else. Karen's like, don't let this southern twang fool you. I'm a very educated black woman. Over at the juice bar, Tony and Rich are meeting up and they're talking about Andy, Danny, and Sabrina. And Tony's concerned about Andy too, as well as the rest of the girls. And Rich is basically like, I don't know what you're concerned for. If Andy wasn't playing Jordan and Gary at the same time, none of this would have happened. Oh, Rich is talking to Tony. Rich is like, I think my girl's being interrogated right now as we speak. Sabrina comes into the interrogation room all nervous and scared, as she should, because she has PTSD from being in jail. And of course, the detective brings up her time in jail and how Sabrina's like, if you did your homework, you would know that I didn't do anything. The detective was like, of course I did, and I also know that you got out, got your job back, and got a promotion. Then the detective tried to say that her and the rest of the girls plotted against Gary to do this. And Sabrina's like, no. The detective is like, if you did, you know you can get off with temporary insanity, right? Sabrina's like, me nor my friends would do something like that. And the detective is like, you're very defensive about your friends from college. Sabrina's like, they're my family. Sabrina's like, I would do anything for them. And the detective is like, even Sabrina's like, if you don't have nothing else to say to me, I would like to leave. That's when Sabrina leaves. This leads into the interrogation of Danny. And let me just say, this girl doesn't take it serious at all. She comes in there with a vape pen in her hand. And the detective is like, you know you can't smoke that, right? Danny is like, what you gonna do, arrest me? And the detective is like, let me just cut to the chase. I know you're gonna give me the same song and dance as your friends. Danny is like, I don't know who told you that, but when I went to that wedding, I went there with the intention to have stuff. The detective is like, all right, we're finally getting somewhere. And Danny's like, of course, I choose violence every day that I wake up if I have to. The detective is like, how far were you willing to go? Danny's like, I told Andy that I was going to burn the place down, and by the time I went to go get the gasoline, somebody already did him like a human shish kebab. The detective is like, you didn't stab Gary, did you? Danny's like, no, but whoever did give them a key to the city. Zach finally has gotten his turn to be interrogated, and the first words out of Zach's mouth is, I'm not talking to you without my attorney present. The detective is like, why would you need an attorney present if you didn't do anything? Zach is like, one thing you're not going to do is use this reverse psychology on me because it's not going to work. The detective is like, of course you would know how this goes because you've been in and out of jail. How's your family? How's your brother? Zach is like, you could either let me call my attorney or we just gonna sit here and me and Megan each other all day. The detective is like, it probably wasn't even you. It was probably your hot-tempered fiance. And Zach pulls a Will Smith and's like, keep my fiance's name out your effing mouth and off the suspect list. And then the detective then goes on to say, how would Heather feel if she knows that you're being investigated? Zach is like, investigated? So you telling me that Gary's dead? The detective is like, you from the hood. How many brothers do you know that will get stabbed in the chest and survive? It's Fatima's turn to get interrogated, and the detective starts bringing up Zach and Zach's family and his multiple baby mama drama, and Fatima's like, wow, You watch too much TV. The detective is like, actually, I don't. I watch a lot of true crime podcasts, and then he brings up this fake story about apparently Google killed her boss's fiance, and Fatima's like, that's very far-fetched. The detective is like, it might not be if it was personal. Fatima's like, what would be the motive? And the detective is like, the dead groom stole from her fiance. Fatima's like, you know what, you need to stop watching so many podcasts. Andy's back in the interrogation room, right? And she's ready to leave. And the agent's like, so you have somewhere else that you would rather be? Andy's like, from what it looks like, you talk to everybody else. They didn't say nothing to you, so you're back talking to me. And he's like, I told you my friends were incapable of murder. Now his friend Hudson, on the other hand, might be. Agent Watt is like, so you're forgetting one guest that was at your wedding, and you're terrified of what you might be saying to my colleague right now. Andy's like, I don't know what you're talking about. The guest that they were referring to is Jordan, and Jordan's first words during his interrogation is like, is Penelope okay? Can she come home now since Gary's gone? The detective was like, well, actually, that's what we want to talk to you. We want to talk to you about why your sister was in protective custody. And Jordan's like, yeah, Gary, he's a cancer to everybody. The detective was like, he did a lot more than touch your sister. He got her pregnant and made her lose the baby. And Jordan's like, yeah, I know that. The detective was like, he was doing that the entire time he was listening after Andrea Barnes, the person that you were with. He's like, I know that had to make you mad and that's why you showed up to the wedding. And Jordan's like, I showed up to the wedding because I wanted answers. The detective was like, I don't know why, Jordan, you had everything. He was about to win counsel and he was doing good. Now your life did a complete 180 for the worse. Your campaigns and scandals now, you done lost the love of your life and all this other stuff, right? Jordan's like, I know what you're doing. You're trying to help me aid you into finding a motive. The detective was like, well, you have more than a motive. You found out that Andy was keeping the secret from you, that your sister's in witness protection. Andy's your sister's lawyer, and her and Gary were probably planning a crazy scheme and playing you this whole time, and this is more than enough motive. Jordan's like, did I want Gary to pay for what he did? Of course, but did I do it? No. Then he starts calling Andy all these type of names, and Jordan's like, don't talk about it like that. The detective's like, you're still in love with her, aren't you? Over at Hayden's house, we see Hayden packing his clothes frantically while he's listening to the news and they're reporting on Gary, and Hayden's like, I gotta get out of here. As he's packing his clothes, he's looking for his passport, and I'm like, Hayden, why are you so frantically trying to get out of here if you didn't do nothing? Hayden is looking very suspicious, and what if he has something to do with Gary's stabbing? Not him directly doing it, but what if Marie called him and he was accessory to the crime? That's why he's trying to get out of here. Hayden packs up his suitcase and he's headed to the door and he's like, it's been really TL. And when he opens the door to head out of it, Tamara's standing there and she's like, are you going somewhere? I'm still trying to figure out why Hayden and Tamara are in contact with each other, or Tamara feels the right to come to his door after what she did. Over at Sabrina's, we see Rich waiting for her to come home, and she comes home and he's like, how are you doing? I thought you were on your way to work. And Sabrina's like, yeah, but I had to stop here first so I could decompress before I go deal with Maurice after everything I've been through today. We see Sabrina still trying to deal with some PTSD after being in the interrogation room, and we know that this is probably going to be a problem for her. And Rich promises her that he'll never leave her. Over at Danny's, we see Danny writing in her journal after the interrogation. She's writing about what happened and how at first she wasn't taking the journal entry seriously, and then she's like, I can't write what I want to write because I'm not going to be in the world's dumbest criminal. But she eventually takes it serious, and she's like, seeing Andy dealing with her trauma and being so close to that, it makes me think of my own. Once Danny is finished writing, we see Tony come in and he kisses her and she's immediately trying to get down to business. One thing we learned about Danny over the previous seasons is that Danny doesn't know how to deal with her trauma. She deals with her trauma trying to trump everybody's bone. Danny has this thing to where she's trying to use temporary passion to fix permanent pain, but it's not working. She needs to really sit down and talk about her feelings, and that's what Tony's trying to tell her. But she's not trying to. But of course Danny is not trying to hear it. Tony's like, you were just interrogated and now you're trying to drop my bones. What's wrong with you? Over at Karen's, we see Karen checking her appointment book, and this lady wants some micro braids, and as she's checking her appointment book, Karen gets a knock on the door, and it's Pam. Karen is like, Pam, what are you doing here? Pam is like, I just wanted to check on you and see how you was doing. I know everything you've been through today. Pam is like, give me a hug. You said I was one of your best friends after the whole mocktail situation. Karen is like, I vaguely remember saying that, but that's it. They give each other a hug. Over at Zach and Fatima are talking, and Zach is like, I can't believe the detective really thought I killed Gary. And Fatima's like, well? Zach is like, well, what? Fatima's like, did you do it? Zach is like, Fatima, wow, you really think I would sit there and kill a man in cold blood like that? Fatima's like, well, you did take your money, and you was mad at him for taking my piece and all this other stuff. Like, we did split up for some time one Saturday. Zach is like, wow, you really think I did it? Fatima's like, if you did, we just gotta be on the same page. I'm not mad at you. Zach is like, I should be asking you the same question because you had just as motive as I did. Fatima's like, how? And Zach is like, Andy. Fatima's like, I do think of Andy as her sister, but I'm not doing any time for her my kids, or anybody else. Fatima's like, I don't even use knives, and if I use knives, it's for torturing purposes only. Zach is like, I'll definitely keep that in mind. Zach is like, they'll still be sniffing after us after they don't find what they want. Fatima's like, well, you might not have to. We figure it out ourselves. We're at the hospital. We see Hudson running in there like a bat out of hell, like, is he dead? Is he dead? The doctor's like, Mr. Borders actually did flatline, but they probably used that as a ploy to get a motive out of y'all. He basically says that Gary's stubborn and he's fine and he's okay. He's just resting right. Back over in the interrogation room, Agent Watt is talking to Andy and he's like, women like you make me sick. Andy's like, what you mean? Agent Watt is like, when women of your kind start screaming abuse, dozens of them come right behind you and start screaming at me too. He's like, when a good man tries to help, you go crawling back to the son of a bitch that did the abuse to you. He's like, Jordan has no chance running for office after he was dealing with a tramp like you. And he's like, you're not playing fair. You've been throwing misogynistic threats all day. And he's like, you don't get a cookie for being a good man. It's men like you who turn a blind eye to Gary when he does stuff like that. Then they start throwing insults back at each other, and that's when Robin walks in, and he's like, who's this? Robin's like, I'm a legal representation. Hey Robin, it's good to have you back, but let me know what you guys think about the episode. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn on your bell notifications. Bye!